You're listening to the Marne Report.
Welcome to the Marne Report. I'm Sergeant First Class Jason Hull, 3rd Infantry Division Public Affairs. I'm here with Major Josh Cosmos. He's a division's plans officer, but he's also the division historian. And if you don't mind, sir, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became the historian of the Rock of the Marne?
Hey, thank you, Sergeant. So my name, like he said, is Major Josh Cosmos. I'm a plans officer here at the division. I got here in July of this year, and I was chosen as the historian because the 380 history is so rich and deep. And last year, another plans officer really kind of started up a lot of the projects that are here in the division, and then me coming in to replace him. I have a undergraduate degree in history, so it's just a natural fit for me to come in and take that position.
All right, and so we're here to talk a little bit about the history of the 105-year-old Marne Division, a history that includes 61 Medal of Honor awardees, more than any other U.S. Army division, and many famous names, well-known names like Audie Murphy, the Alwyn Cash, General Robert Abrams, even units like the Buccaneers, the Puerto Rican National Guard that was a part of the 3rd Infantry Division in Korea. So, sir, since you are the subject matter expert and we have you here now, let's just talk a little bit about how the 3rd Infantry Division has really found itself as the decisive element for some of the most significant pieces of American military history.
Yeah, thank you. So as you mentioned, 3rd Infantry Division has just numerous Medal of Honor winners and has been really a shining star since World War I. And 3ID itself was constituted on November 12th, 1917 as the 3rd Division. And then on November 21st, 1917, the day that we really recognize as his birthday, it was organized at Camp Green, North Carolina.
Okay, sir. So when the division was constituted, it was constituted specifically for service in World War I. Am I right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about World War I and why that matters so much to the legacy of this incredible storied division.
Absolutely. So as the 3rd Division, which is what they were called at the time, fought in the Second Battle of the Marne, it was a key location where the 3rd Division was flanked on either side by Allied French divisions. And on July 14th into the July 15th of 1918, as the French began to withdraw, General Joseph Dickman, who's the commanding general of 3ID at the time, or 3rd Division at the time, turned to his Allied commanding general and said in the French language, "Nous resterons là," which translates to "we shall remain here," really kind of proving that Rock of the Marne staying in the Marne River area.
And just for some perspective, I mean, World War I, Second Battle of the Marne, this was the second time the Germans led an assault up to the Marne River. And this is at a time when Russia has been defeated on the eastern flank, so Germany now has a single front war. And the Allies really, they just had everything about the Prussian army coming at them, really. And the Allied Expeditionary Force was just receiving the American doughboys. And this was really sort of, I think, the 3rd Infantry's first real test. And just to provide some perspective in this engagement, when the 3rd Infantry Division stood its ground against a vicious German assault, which was intended to seize Paris. And at that time, I believe that the U.S. was entering the war. Germany had defeated Russia on its eastern flank, and so the Allied Expeditionary Forces really had everything that the Prussian army had coming at them.
So the American army in general was relatively yellow in this point and unexperienced, where most of the European allies had been fighting for up to 4 years at this point. So there was a little bit of lack of trust between, really in the American army itself. And this is where it kind of turned around, is this beginning of the July of 1918, so that 14-15 Second Battle of the Marne. And as you mentioned, Russia wasn't as much in the fight anymore, so you had Germans, specifically their artillery, with just a massive barrage with thousands of rounds of artillery, including mustard gas and other chemical agents that were being fired at the French and Americans. And that is where that withdrawal of the French began, and the term Rock of the Marne really came for the 3rd Division.
All right. And so that, I guess, is the division's first real test, and the division stood its ground and earned its motto and earned its legacy, and would do so again a short while later in World War II. Yeah, and so in World War I, there were several campaigns that 3rd Division participated in, and as part of the patch now is you have the blue background, which symbolizes loyalty, and then the 3 stripes of white that show the 3 campaigns that 3rd Division really centrally participated in World War I. But as you move on to World War II, on August 1st, 1942, that's when the 3rd Division was reorganized as the 3rd Infantry Division, where it gets the name that it still has today. All right, and so the division would first see action as part of an amphibious force, specifically trained, I think, for amphibious assaults in World War I, but that first assault would occur on the beaches of Morocco. Yeah, that's correct. So the entire North African campaign that several people kind of forget about. You really think about the European and then the Pacific side, but to get to that European side, there was a whole North African campaign. And the 3rd Infantry Division trained up in amphibious assault in various locations in the United States on both the west and east coast before they went over and conducted assaults in Morocco. And then that would be followed by Tunisia, and then Sicily, and then Italy, and then what would become known as the Forgotten D-Day was the amphibious assault in southern France at Saint-Tropez. Yeah, that's correct. So there was those initial amphibious invasions, as you mentioned, and then a ground movement towards Tunisia, and then amphibious invasions into Sicily, and then again Italy, with ground movements in between. So it was a lot of maneuver both on ground and sea. All right, and then of course, at this point, what we know now is that the 3rd Infantry Division would be the U.S. Army's most combat experienced division in World War II, because I think they would see somewhere close to 600 consecutive days of combat. Yeah, I can't remember the exact number, but definitely over 500, close to 600 consecutive days of combat from 1943 into 1945, I believe. And this is where you see the big names of some of our Medal of Honor winners. So you mentioned earlier, but Audie Murphy, you have Michael Daly, and then Maurice Footsie Britt are 3 that really come to mind, where you have these just extraordinary men who go on and do things that are above and beyond the call of duty. And speaking of above and beyond the call of duty, I mean, one thing that everybody knows about World War II is the Battle of Bastogne and the besieged Allies surrounded by Germans through the harshest of European winters in, I think, centuries. But what a lot of people don't realize is that what was key to breaking through was the 3rd Infantry Division's effort in clearing the Colmar pocket, a pocket of German resistance to the south. And then what would follow would be a penetration in through the German defenses, the Siegfried Line. Yeah, so that Colmar pocket in early 1945 became very crucial, and like you said, the Battle of the Bulge definitely stands out as a key event in that time. But there's a lot of supporting efforts that had to take place, and the 3rd Infantry Division was key and essential in those. And I think what people fail to miss is just how severe the conditions were that year. I think, there was a lot of snow, there was a lot of mud. Germans had artillery that was specifically designed to explode at the treetop line to rain down shrapnel. And at that point, supply lines were getting stretched. It's just what was happening in Bastogne was a very similar experience to what the 3rd Infantry Division experienced in the fight for the Colmar pocket. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most people are familiar with the
with the 82nd poster of a soldier out in the winter making some comments about how the enemy isn't getting past them. But just like that, you have the 3rd Infantry Division in very similar conditions. And like you said, those artillery rounds, not only do the fragmentation of the shells themselves cause a lot of issues and the concussion, but the splintering effect of trees is a constant worry. So your previous cover could be your worst enemy.
Very true, very true. But nevertheless, the Allies prevailed, and at some point, the 3rd Infantry Division entered Germany. And back to those key moments of history, that the 3rd Infantry Division was a decisive factor of it. We get to the Siege of Nuremberg, which Nuremberg being the birthplace of Nazism, it was really the crown jewel of the Third Reich. And taking Nuremberg was a very significant blow to the German morale.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So they seized Nuremberg on April 20th of 1945, which is also Hitler's birthday. And then a week later, that's when Hitler committed suicide before he was completely overrun by the Allied forces. So a significant day all around, and 3rd Infantry Division was there to really be that keystone in it.
And then, of course, the controversy of who was first at the Eagle's Nest in Berchtesgaden. I mean, I know that the 101st, and maybe Hollywood portrays paratroopers of the 101st being the first to seize Hitler's Eagle's Nest, but I believe there's some controversy about that, isn't there?
Yeah, from what I've heard, there is. I'm not going to be the one to settle that debate here, though.
Okay, because and those that follow us know that we here maintain that the 7th Infantry Regiment was the first of the 3rd Infantry Division to reach the Eagle's Nest. Okay, sir, World War II, let's go ahead and talk through the next few decades for the 3rd Infantry Division.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, we founded in November 1917. We have 2 Medal of Honor winners in World War I. Really crucial in World War II with just numerous Medal of Honor winners, as we talked. And then 3rd Infantry Division still had a really important role in the Korean War, and then also during the Cold War with a presence in Germany and Europe, really to kind of be that offset to the USSR. And then also in Desert Storm, too. So you get through the 1990s into the new millennium, and now 2003, Operation Iraqi Freedom happens, and you're going to have to call your armored division, the 3rd Infantry Division, that's known to be able to handle tough situations.
Well, let's talk about that 3rd Infantry Division and this moment when the world recognized that the 3rd Infantry Division was the premier mechanized force because of Baghdad.
Yeah, so really it's a question of how do we get to Baghdad, right? So you're in Kuwait. The idea was that the 4th Infantry Division is going to come from the north from Turkey. They were unable to do that due to some other reasons. So it really falls on the 3rd Infantry Division to come from the south from Kuwait. And that's where in late March and early April, you have the concept of the Thunder Run. So the armored movement from Kuwait into Iraq and seizing Baghdad.
So there'll be another couple of notable division heroes there as far as Stephen Booker, I believe, got the Distinguished Service Cross for his actions in the Thunder Run, and then of course Paul R. Smith. But could we go a little bit into what it is that the 3rd Infantry Division did to take the west side of Baghdad?
Yeah, so it was a large flanking movement where you had an armored unit, armored division that was just moving at catastrophic success almost, where they're outpacing their supply lines and doing everything they can to keep up. Where you have just combat power that's moving forward rapidly, way faster than initially anticipated. However, the leaders and soldiers were able to continue the fight and continue the supply, keeping the combat power moving forward. So they did that with brigades and also a division cavalry, a concept that's now coming back into discussions and practice. And that was a really a great example of how these armored units can work together for offensive operations.
Okay, and I think that one of the key things, the key successes of the Thunder Runs was the combined arms and maneuver, right? Because artillery was raining down on enemy positions about 10 minutes ahead of the armored force. And the first Thunder Run was intended to penetrate the IRG's defenses and then fall back, right? And then they did it again, and almost the exact same plan with a twist.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, this is not just an Army event as well. This is joint, and then you also have within the Army combined arms. So you have maneuver and fires that are working together. So that's both the internal cannon artillery of the 3rd Infantry Division, and then also, as General Austin, who was the one of the DCGs at the time, stated that the rocket artillery, the MLRS, provided just outstanding effects that were able to support the maneuver of the 3rd Infantry Division as they moved north.
Okay. And then the second Thunder Run ultimately led to the seizure of that area of Baghdad that would become the Green Zone, and the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team, 1st 64th, would hold that against the enemy through the night. Yeah,
absolutely. So still some of the units that are still here on Fort Stewart, Georgia, in the 3rd Infantry Division were instrumental for the Thunder Run itself. And the 1st of the 64th is one of those.
And I think, what you touched on, that combined arms, as we contemplate the potential for large-scale combat operations and where the division's at now in terms of training and modernization, I don't know, any thoughts on what we learned from the Battle of Baghdad?
Yeah, so we really saw after the modernization in the 1990s and early 2000s how effective it was post-Desert Storm into the Thunder Run. And we've continued to learn over the years during Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and the subsequent operations in the Middle East. And that continues forward as we look forward to whatever our next conflict is. And that's why the 3rd Infantry Division is the most modernized division, our armored division going forward, is because we know that we always have the need for readiness and modernization.
Okay. Well, so we've had a long conversation about the 3rd Infantry Division's role in these key moments, these key chapters of history. Can we talk a little bit about how the division now, today, is preserving that legacy?
Yeah, so it's key that we connect our dog-faced soldiers that we call our soldiers here in the 3rd Infantry Division to our historical roots. And part of that is simple things like recognizing our 105th birthday, which is coming up here in 4 days, that we celebrated on November 17th. And some of it is other actions that we take. So we have a Marne Hall of Fame and Distinguished Member of the Division panel that every year, starting last year, we go through a panel process, and we will be recognizing at our division ball on December 2nd. And some of that is some of the people involved in that are names that we mentioned today, some of our Medal of Honor winners, and some others that had great action while serving in the 3rd Infantry Division. Harold Nelson is one who comes to mind. He's a 107-year-old vet of World War II who served alongside Audie Murphy and Michael Daly and the people that we mentioned earlier in this podcast, and is still alive today and got recognized with a Silver Star presentation earlier this year. And then we also have distinguished members of the division who served in the 3rd Infantry Division and then went on to do great things afterwards. That's one example. Another example is we are conducting a lot of vehicle displays here on Fort Stewart and also renaming our gates with historical names in mind. We'll be renaming some of the streets to really kind of key in on our 3rd ID history. And then we're also working on a form of a Marne history book to kind of give everyone a more than Cliff Notes version of what our division has done over time. There's a lot of good books out there about the 3rd Infantry Division, but we can kind of wrap that up and show from World War I to present day kind of what the 3rd Infantry Division has done.
Well, I think what I really appreciate about these initiatives and these efforts is, so many people know the big names, the Medal of Honor awardees. But the Marne Hall of Fame, you don't have to be a Medal of Honor awardee, just somebody who contributed very significantly in the division and their legacy might otherwise be lost. But with the Marne Hall of Fame, with the DMOD, by introducing our soldiers to their stories, whether it's at the gate or as part of a book, we ensure that their example lasts and endures for modern dog-faced soldiers to learn from and emulate.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really what we need.
All right, well, that does it for the Marne Report in the lead up to Marne Week. Happy 105th birthday, Rock of the Marne.
The Digital Garrison app is a one-stop shop for everything you need to know about Stewart and Hunter, with real-time information to keep our military community connected. Users can access a variety of information such as gate hours, an installation directory, weather, installation news and events, online shopping, push notifications, and more. The Digital Garrison app is available for free through your favorite app store. Set your location to Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield and you'll never miss a moment.